The antiseptic scent burned my nostrils as I struggled to keep my eyes open. 43 hours of labor had hollowed me out, leaving nothing but a shell of exhaustion wrapped around the fierce, primal love I felt for the tiny bundle nestled against my chest. The hospital room was quiet now, save for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the occasional squeak of rubber-soled shoes passing by my door. I traced my finger along my daughter's perfect cheek, marveling at skin so soft it barely felt real. Sophia, my little miracle, my secret. "We made it, baby girl," I whispered, my voice hoarse from screaming through contractions. "It's just you and me now." 7 months ago, I'd packed everything I owned into my beat-up Honda and driven 18 hours straight from Chicago to this small town in Tennessee. No forwarding address, no goodbyes, just gone, like smoke dissipating into thin air. Marcus would never know about her. He'd never know I was carrying his child when I disappeared. The thought of him still made my stomach clench with fear. Marcus Vitale. Not just any man, but the heir to the Vitale crime family. I'd been working as a waitress at one of their legitimate restaurants, completely unaware of who owned it until it was too late. By then, I was already falling for his charm, his intensity, the way his dark eyes followed me across the room. The affair had been intoxicating, dangerous, and the biggest mistake of my life. I'd discovered the truth about him the same night I realized I was pregnant. The sound of gunshots still echoed in my nightmares. The sight of blood pooling beneath the man who'd disrespected Marcus. The casual way he'd straightened his Italian silk tie afterward, as if he hadn't just ordered someone's execution. I ran that night, terror propelling me forward even as morning sickness had me stopping every hour to vomit on the side of the road. I'd chosen this hospital because it was small, understaffed, and unlikely to be on anyone's radar. I'd been careful. So careful. A sharp knock startled me from my thoughts. Probably the night nurse coming to check my vitals again. "Come in," I called softly, careful not to wake Sophia. The door swung open, and time stopped. He filled the doorframe, shoulders broad beneath a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. His raven hair was swept back, revealing the sharp angles of his face, cheekbones that could cut glass, jaw perpetually clenched with tension, and those eyes. Those piercing, obsidian eyes that had once looked at me with such hunger, now burned with something far more dangerous. My arms instinctively tightened around my daughter, as every drop of blood drained from my face. "Marcus Vitale. Here. In my hospital room." "Hello, Eliza." His voice was just as I remembered. Deep, smooth, with that hint of an accent from his Italian-born father. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" 2 men in dark suits lingered in the hallway behind him. His security. Always present, always watching. Marcus never went anywhere alone. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My entire body trembled as he stepped inside and closed the door with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot to my ears. 43 hours of labor, he continued conversationally, moving closer. Difficult birth. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. 20 inches long. A daughter. Each fact fell like a hammer blow. "You named her Sophia, after your grandmother, I assume." He knew everything. Of course he knew. The Vitales had eyes everywhere. "How?" My voice cracked, and I swallowed hard. "How did you find me?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips as he came to stand at the foot of my bed. "I never lost you, Eliza." The implications of that statement hit me like a physical blow. He'd known where I was all along. For 7 months, I'd been looking over my shoulder, changing my routine, using cash instead of cards, sleeping with a baseball bat beside my bed, all while he watched from the shadows. "Why wait until now?" I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic clawing at my throat. Marcus's gaze dropped to the bundle in my arms, and something shifted in his expression. Something possessive and fierce that made my blood run cold. I wanted to be certain. Certain of what? That she's mine. The monitor beside me betrayed the sudden spike in my heart rate. "She's not yours," I lied desperately. "I was seeing someone else before I left. She's his." Marcus moved to the side of the bed with predatory grace. I pressed myself against the pillows, as if I could somehow melt through the wall behind me. He reached out, and I flinched, but his hand merely brushed a strand of hair from my face, the gesture deceptively gentle. 7 months ago, you were in my bed every night, he said softly. You wore my marks on your skin. You belong to me, Eliza, and now so does she. Please, I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. Please just let us go. I won't ask for anything. I'll never contact you. No one has to know. But I know. His fingers trailed down to Sophia's tiny head, brushing over the dark wisps of hair she'd been born with. Hair the exact same shade as his. And she is a Vitale. Sophia stirred, her little face scrunching up before relaxing again into sleep. I watched in horror as something like tenderness flickered across Marcus's face. You stole from me, Eliza, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Not money. Not jewels. Something far more valuable. His gaze locked with mine. My blood. My legacy. Did you think I would just let that go? I was scared, I admitted, the truth finally spilling out. I saw what you did to that man at the restaurant. I heard you give the order like it was nothing. I couldn't raise a child in that world. Something dark passed behind his eyes. So instead, you decided to raise my child in poverty? Working 2 jobs? Living in that pathetic apartment with paper-thin walls and black mold in the bathroom? The fact that he knew where I lived, how I'd been surviving, sent a fresh wave of terror through me. Had he been watching me all this time? Had his men been reporting on my every move? It was safe, I whispered. No, Eliza, it wasn't. His voice hardened. Nothing is safe without my protection. Do you have any idea how many times I've had to intervene to keep you both unharmed these past months? I stared at him, uncomprehending. The drunk driver who nearly hit you in the crosswalk last month? The man following you home from your night shift at the diner 3 weeks ago? The landlord who was planning to evict you after you fell behind on rent? His smile was cold. I've been protecting what's mine, even if you were too blind to see it. My mind reeled. The drunk driver had swerved at the last second, missing me by inches. The creepy man had suddenly turned down another street for no reason. The eviction notice I'd been dreading had never come, despite being 2 weeks late on rent. I don't understand, I said weakly. If you knew where I was, why didn't you just take me back? Marcus sat on the edge of my bed, making the mattress dip under his weight. I was acutely aware of how vulnerable I was. Exhausted, in pain, trapped in a hospital gown with my newborn in my arms. Because I needed to see what choice you would make, he replied, studying my face with unnerving intensity. Whether you would run forever or eventually realize you couldn't do this alone. I can do this alone, I insisted, even as my voice betrayed my uncertainty. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out what looked like a passport. He flipped it open, revealing a photo of me looking years younger. But the name wasn't mine. Eliza Carter died in a car accident 6 hours ago, he said calmly. Very tragic. The vehicle went off a bridge. The body was too damaged for open casket viewing. The funeral will be small, attended only by a few co-workers from the diner who barely knew her. Ice filled my veins. What are you talking about? Your old life is over. By tomorrow morning, there will be no record that Eliza Carter ever gave birth here. The hospital staff has already been compensated for their discretion. I glanced toward the door, suddenly understanding why no nurse had come to check on me in hours. They'd been warned to stay away. The entire hospital floor was probably under his control. You can't just erase a person, I protested, though I knew it was exactly what the Vitales specialized in. I'm not erasing you, Marcus corrected me, tucking the false passport away. I'm giving you a new beginning, as my wife and the mother of my child. Your wife? I echoed in disbelief. You can't be serious. His expression didn't flicker. The ceremony will be private, family only. Once you've recovered from the birth, and if I refuse? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out and carefully, so carefully, took Sophia from my arms before I could stop him. No. I tried to grab her back, but a sharp pain tore through my abdomen, reminding me of the stitches from my emergency C-section. Marcus held our daughter with surprising confidence, cradling her tiny body against his broad chest. She has my mother's nose, he observed quietly, something like wonder in his voice. And your lips. Please give her back, I begged, panic rising in my throat. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his gaze. I lost my own mother when I was 12, Eliza. I know what it does to a child to grow up without a parent. Are you threatening to take her from me? My voice broke on the last word. I'm offering you a choice, he corrected. Both of you come home with me, become my family officially, and want for nothing for the rest of your lives. Or... He let the alternative hang unspoken. That's not a choice, I whispered. It's an ultimatum. Life is full of those. He gently placed Sophia back in my trembling arms, and I clutched her to my chest, breathing in her sweet newborn scent. You have until morning to decide. He stood, adjusting his cuffs. A nervous habit I'd noticed during our time together. One of the few tells that betrayed he was human beneath the dangerous exterior. Your mother died when you were in college, he said suddenly. Car accident. Your father drank himself to death 2 years later. You have no siblings, no close family. No one would question your disappearance. The clinical way he recited the tragedies of my life made me flinch. I have friends, acquaintances, he corrected. No one close enough to realize Eliza Carter and Sofia Vitale are the same people. The use of that name, Sofia Vitale, made everything suddenly, terrifyingly real. I'll be back in the morning, Marcus said, moving toward the door. For now, rest. You've been through a lot. His hand rested on the doorknob, but he paused, looking back at me. And Eliza, don't make the mistake of thinking you can run again. My men are stationed at every exit. The entire maternity ward is secure. He opened the door, revealing one of his security guards standing at attention just outside. Before leaving, he added softly, almost tenderly, She's beautiful. You did well. The door closed behind him, and I was left alone with my daughter, and the shattering realization that the careful new life I'd built was collapsing around me. I looked down at Sophia's sleeping face, unmarked by the violence and danger of her father's world. I'm so sorry, baby girl, I whispered, tears dropping onto her swaddling blanket. I thought I could hide you. I thought I could keep you safe, but Marcus had found us, and now I had until morning to make an impossible choice. Sleep evaded me that night, despite my bone-deep exhaustion. Every creak in the hallway, every shadow that passed my door sent my heart racing. I kept Sophia clutched to my chest, unwilling to place her in the hospital bassinet even for a moment. My mind spun with desperate plans, each one more implausible than the last. The window in my room was sealed shut, and we were on the 4th floor. The fire escape required an alarm code. The stairwells would be watched. Even if I somehow managed to slip past Marcus's men, where would I go? With a newborn? No car, no money, no identity? As the night wore on, a hollow acceptance settled in my chest. There was no escape this time. When dawn broke, painting my sterile room in hues of gold, I had made my decision. Not for me, but for her. For Sophia. The door opened at precisely 7 o'clock. I'd been watching the digital clock on the wall, counting down the minutes. But it wasn't Marcus who entered. It was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into an elegant knot. She carried a large designer bag and wore an expression of brisk efficiency. "Good morning, Ms. Carter. I'm Camilla," she announced, her voice carrying a hint of the same Italian accent as Marcus. "Mr. Vitale sent me to help prepare you." "Prepare me?" I echoed, instinctively shifting Sophia to my other arm. Camilla set her bag on the visitor's chair and began unpacking it. "For your departure. The doctor will be here shortly to sign your discharge papers." She withdrew clothing, not my worn maternity leggings and oversized t-shirt, but brand new items with tags still attached. "I've brought you something suitable to wear." I stared at the soft-looking black pants with an expandable waistband, a loose cream-colored silk blouse, and a cashmere wrap cardigan. All luxury brands, all perfectly sized for my postpartum body. "Mr. Vitale had your measurements," Camilla explained, noticing my confusion, "and guessed you might have gained an additional size during pregnancy." The thought of Marcus calculating my changing body measurements sent an uncomfortable shiver down my spine. How closely had he been watching me? "There are also items for the little one," she continued, laying out a ridiculously expensive-looking baby outfit, a soft white sleeper embroidered with tiny gold details, a matching hat, and the smallest cashmere blanket I'd ever seen. "I can't," I began, but Camilla cut me off with a look. "Mr. Vitale insists." The words carried weight, not a suggestion, but an order. A doctor I hadn't seen before entered the room, accompanied by a nurse. Both avoided making eye contact with me as they performed a hurried check of my vitals and stitches. "Everything looks good," the doctor announced, scribbling on a clipboard. "The discharge papers are ready. You'll need to follow up with your personal physician in a week." He handed me a prescription for pain medication and disappeared before I could ask any questions. Camilla moved efficiently around the room, gathering the few personal items I'd brought to the hospital and placing them in a new leather tote bag. "I'll step out while you dress," she said. "The car will be waiting downstairs in 20 minutes. Left alone, I looked down at my daughter, now awake and blinking up at me with unfocused dark eyes. "I'm doing this for you," I whispered. "Only for you." Dressing was painful, my abdomen screaming in protest with each movement. The clothes felt foreign against my skin. Too soft. Too expensive. I dressed Sophia in the provided outfit, which made her look like a tiny princess. When I'd finished, I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting. The door opened again, and this time it was Marcus. He wore a different suit today, navy blue, immaculately tailored. His eyes took in the sight of me in the clothes he'd provided, and something like satisfaction crossed his face. "You look better," he observed, closing the distance between us. I didn't respond. What was there to say? "Have you made your decision, Eliza?" I met his gaze steadily. Would it matter if I said no? A muscle twitched in his jaw. "I told you, I'm giving you a choice. A choice between coming with you willingly or being taken by force," I clarified. "Not much of a choice. I prefer to think of it as a choice between fighting the inevitable or accepting it with grace." He reached out, his knuckles brushing against my cheek in what might have been a tender gesture from any other man. "You were always going to be mine, Eliza, from the moment I saw you." I pulled away from his touch. "I'll go with you. For Sophia's sake." Relief flickered across his face, so brief I almost missed it. "You won't regret this decision." "I already do," I murmured. Instead of anger, my words drew a small, enigmatic smile from him. "That will change. With time." He extended his hand to help me up, and I took it reluctantly, wincing at the pain from my surgery. Marcus's arm immediately went around my waist, supporting me with surprising gentleness. "The car is waiting," he said. "Can you walk, or should I carry you?" The thought of being carried in his arms through the hospital made my stomach turn. "I can walk." Sophia began to fuss, her tiny face scrunching up in preparation for a cry. Before I could react, Marcus carefully took her from me, cradling her against his chest with one arm while keeping the other around my waist. "I've got her," he said, his voice taking on a softness I'd rarely heard before. "You focus on not tearing your stitches." The juxtaposition was jarring. This dangerous man, who I'd seen order a killing without blinking, now holding my daughter with such care, our daughter. The thought still felt alien, wrong somehow. We moved slowly through the corridor. 2 security men walked ahead of us, another 2 behind. The hospital staff kept their eyes averted, pretending not to notice our strange procession. No one asked for paperwork. No one questioned why a patient was being escorted out by armed men in suits. Money bought a lot of things, including silence. The elevator took us to a private exit at the rear of the building, where a black SUV with tinted windows waited, its engine running. Another identical vehicle was parked behind it, and 2 more ahead. A motorcade fit for a president or a Mafia don. "Careful with the step," Marcus murmured as we approached the car. One of his men opened the door, revealing a luxurious interior and, to my surprise, a properly installed infant car seat. I stared at it in confusion. "How did you—" "I had it installed last night, top safety rating." There was something almost eager in his voice, like he wanted my approval. "The base can be transferred to any of our vehicles, as if we were already a family unit." I slid into the car awkwardly, pain shooting through my abdomen with each movement. Marcus followed, still holding Sophia with practiced ease. I watched as he carefully settled her into the car seat, buckling her in with a precision that suggested he'd researched how to do it properly. "Where are we going?" I asked as the convoy pulled away from the hospital. "Home," he replied simply. "Your home, you mean?" Marcus's gaze shifted to mine. "Our home now. It's been prepared for both of you." I turned to look out the window, watching the small Tennessee town slide past. The diner where I'd worked night shifts, the pharmacy where I'd purchased my prenatal vitamins, the park where I'd walked every evening, one hand resting on my growing belly as I'd dreamed of a future that now seemed impossible. "You'll never have to work in a place like that again," Marcus said, following my gaze to the diner. "Never worry about bills or rent. Never fear for your safety or Sophia's. Just the safety that comes from being part of a crime family," I replied bitterly. His expression hardened. "My business interests are diverse, Eliza. You know only a fraction of what the Vitale family is involved in." "I know enough. You know what I allowed you to see." I turned to face him fully. "I saw you order a man's death." Marcus didn't flinch. Carlo Bianchi, 47, married with 3 children. He was skimming money from one of my legitimate businesses and selling information about our shipments to a rival family. His voice was coldly matter-of-fact. "If I had let him live, it would have endangered dozens of people who depend on me for their livelihoods, including you, though you didn't know it at the time. The casual way he justified murder made my skin crawl. That doesn't make it right. Right and wrong look different depending on where you're standing." His gaze softened as it moved to Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her car seat. "But I promise you this, our daughter will never see that side of the business. She will be protected, educated, given every advantage, until she marries her off to cement some alliance with another crime family." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. A flash of genuine anger crossed his face. "Is that what you think of me? That I would use my own child as a pawn?" "I don't know what to think of you anymore, Marcus." We lapsed into silence as the cars merged onto the highway. I recognized the direction, north, toward Chicago. Going back to the city I'd fled in terror 7 months ago. "It's a long drive," Marcus said eventually. "You should rest. You're still recovering." Despite my determination to stay alert, exhaustion weighed heavily on me. The gentle motion of the car combined with the sleepless night and physical toll of childbirth made my eyelids droop. I fought against it, not wanting to show weakness. "Sleep, Eliza," Marcus said softly. "I'll wake you when Sophia needs to be fed." I intended to resist, but my body had other plans. The last thing I remembered was the weight of Marcus's jacket being draped over me as darkness claimed me. I woke to the sound of soft murmuring. Disoriented, I blinked against the afternoon sunlight streaming through the car windows. We were still driving, but now through the outskirts of Chicago. The familiar skyline loomed in the distance, sending a wave of anxiety through me. The murmuring continued, and I turned to find the source. Marcus was holding Sophia, who had clearly woken and been removed from her car seat. He was speaking to her in Italian, his voice a gentle rumble as his large hand cradled her tiny head. "Sei la mia principessa," he was saying. "Ti proteggerò sempre." My heart clenched at the sight. There was genuine tenderness in the way he looked at her. This man who had tracked me across states, who had effectively kidnapped me from the hospital, who had threatened to separate me from my child if I didn't comply with his demands. He looked up, noticing I was awake. "She was fussing," he explained. "I didn't want to wake you yet." "She needs to be fed," I said, automatically holding out my arms for her. Marcus carefully transferred Sophia to me, his fingers brushing against mine in the process. The simple contact sent an unwelcome jolt through me. I adjusted my position, wincing at the pain in my abdomen, and prepared to nurse her. "Do you need privacy?" Marcus asked, surprising me with his consideration. "Yes," I replied, unable to imagine breastfeeding with him watching. He nodded and pressed a button that raised a privacy partition between us and the driver, then turned slightly away, focusing his attention on his phone to give me some semblance of space in the confined car. As Sophia latched on and began to nurse, I studied the Chicago landscape growing ever closer. "Where exactly are we going?" "Not to the city apartment," he replied without looking up. "We're heading to the estate in Lake Forest." The Vitale estate. I'd heard rumors about it during my time working at the restaurant, a compound-like property with extensive security, sprawling gardens, and every luxury imaginable. Isolated. Controlled. Perfect for keeping someone contained. "Your mother is expecting us," Marcus added casually. I nearly choked. "Your mother? I thought that she died." "No, that was my father's mother, my nonna. My mother is very much alive and eager to meet her granddaughter." The thought of meeting the woman who had raised Marcus Vitale, who had presumably stood by while her husband built one of Chicago's most feared crime families, sent a fresh wave of panic through me. "You didn't mention your family would be involved," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Marcus finally looked up from his phone, his expression unreadable. "They're Sophia's family too, her bloodline, her heritage." "I don't want her raised in this world," I whispered fiercely. "What world would you have her raised in, Eliza? The world of struggle and want? Of working 2 jobs just to make rent? Of wondering where her next meal will come from?" His voice remained calm, but his eyes flashed with intensity. "I grew up with privilege, yes, but also with purpose, with tradition, with family loyalty above all else. That is what I want for our daughter, and what about what I want for her? You'll be her mother. Your influence will shape her daily life. I would never interfere with that." The words sounded reasonable, almost comforting, but I knew better. This was a man who had tracked me across state lines, who had effectively erased my identity, who had threatened to take my child if I didn't agree to his terms. His definition of not interfering was very different from mine. Sophia finished nursing, and I adjusted my clothing before lifting her to my shoulder to burp her. The action was already becoming natural, instinctive. "We're almost there," Marcus said, glancing out the window. "There's something you should know before we arrive." I waited, tension coiling in my stomach. "This isn't just about Sophia," he said finally, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me want to look away. "It's about you, Eliza. It's always been about you." "What do you mean?" "I could have taken her from you at the hospital, had her brought to me, arranged for custody." His voice was soft but certain. "I didn't because I want both of you. I've wanted you since the first moment I saw you drop an entire tray of drinks and then laugh at yourself instead of crying." The memory hit me with unexpected force. My 3rd day working at the restaurant, my hands shaking with nervousness as I carried too many glasses on one tray. The crash had been spectacular, drawing every eye in the place, including, apparently, his. "You noticed me before we even met," I said, the realization dawning. "I had you transferred to my section the next day." There was no shame in his admission of manipulation. "I wanted to know if you were as genuine as you seemed, if your smile reached your eyes even when you thought no one was looking." I stared at him, unsure how to process this information. "So, all of it, our meeting, our relationship, it was planned? Orchestrated?" "The introduction, yes. What came after?" Something flickered across his face, something almost vulnerable. "That wasn't planned. You weren't supposed to matter so much." Before I could respond, the car slowed, turning onto a private road lined with tall trees. At the end stood an imposing wrought iron gate with an ornate V worked into the design. Security cameras swiveled to track our approach. An armed guard stepped forward to verify the driver before waving us through. The Vitale estate sprawled before us like something from another world. My world of double shifts and discount groceries seemed galaxies away from this palace of old money and power. The main house was an imposing stone mansion with soaring windows and immaculate architectural details, surrounded by manicured gardens that stretched as far as I could see. Several smaller buildings dotted the property. Guest houses, I assumed, or perhaps quarters for staff and security. As our convoy circled the curved driveway, I spotted at least a dozen security personnel patrolling the grounds, their dark suits and alert postures marking them as more than simple gardeners or household staff. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. The car came to a stop at the base of wide marble steps leading to massive double doors. Marcus stepped out first, then leaned in to help me, his hands gentle but firm as he supported my weight. I clutched Sophia to my chest, the tiny weight of her the only reality I could be certain of in this surreal moment. "Take it slowly," Marcus murmured. his arm around my waist as we climbed the steps. I was acutely aware of the security men forming a perimeter around us, their watchful eyes scanning constantly for threats. Not guards, I realized with a chill. Sentries. The doors swung open before we reached them, revealing a grand foyer with a crystal chandelier and a sweeping staircase that belonged in a period film. Standing beneath the chandelier was a slender woman in her early 60s. Her silver-streaked black hair swept into an elegant updo, her posture regal despite her average height. She wore a simple but obviously expensive black dress, a single strand of pearls at her throat, and an expression of barely contained anticipation. Lucia Vitale, Marcus's mother, the matriarch of one of Chicago's most feared families. Finalmente, she said, her dark eyes, so like her son's, moving from Marcus to me, and finally to the bundle in my arms. Something in her face softened. You've brought them home. Marcus guided me forward. Mother, this is Eliza. Eliza, my mother. Lucia Vitale. I'd expected coldness, judgment, perhaps even open hostility. Instead, Lucia stepped forward and took my free hand between both of hers. Her skin was soft, but her grip surprisingly strong. Welcome to our home, she said, her Italian accent more pronounced than her son's. Her gaze dropped to Sophia. May I see my granddaughter? The question was directed at me, not Marcus, which surprised me enough that I found myself nodding. Lucia carefully folded back the edge of the blanket to reveal Sophia's sleeping face, and for a moment, the powerful woman before me was simply a grandmother seeing her grandchild for the first time. The naked emotion on her face was startling in its authenticity. She has the Vitale nose, Lucia whispered, echoing Marcus's earlier observation. And your coloring, I think. She looked up at me with what appeared to be genuine warmth. You have given our family a precious gift. I didn't know how to respond. I hadn't given them anything. Their son had tracked me down and effectively forced me to return. Eliza needs to rest, Marcus interjected, perhaps sensing my discomfort. The birth was difficult, and the journey has been long. Lucia immediately stepped back. Of course. Everything is prepared upstairs. Elena will help you settle in. She gestured to a young woman in a simple uniform who had appeared silently at the edge of the foyer. We can become better acquainted when you've had time to recover. Marcus led me toward the grand staircase, still supporting much of my weight. Each step sent pain shooting through my abdomen, a reminder of the surgery that had brought Sophia into the world just over 24 hours ago. Your mother seems... I searched for the right word as we climbed. Less intimidating than you expected? There was a hint of amusement in his voice. I was going to say surprisingly welcoming. Family means everything to her, to all of us. Marcus guided me down a wide hallway lined with what looked like original artwork. She's been preparing for your arrival since I told her about the pregnancy. I nearly stumbled. You told her? When? The day after you left. His expression darkened momentarily. I knew why you'd run, Eliza. It wasn't difficult to connect the dots. We stopped before a set of double doors at the end of the hallway. Marcus pushed them open to reveal what could only be described as a suite, a large bedroom with a sitting area connected to what glimpsed as a luxurious bathroom and another room beyond that. This will be your space, Marcus said, guiding me inside. Yours and Sophia's. I took in the details slowly, the massive four-poster bed with what looked like handmade linens, the plush seating area before a marble fireplace, the wall of windows overlooking the estate's gardens and Lake Michigan beyond. Everything spoke of old money, of generations of wealth and taste. But what caught my attention most was the addition that clearly didn't match the rest of the antique furnishings. A state-of-the-art bassinet beside the bed, a changing table stocked with supplies, and a nursing chair in the corner, complete with a footstool and side table. You've been planning this for months, I said quietly, the realization hitting me with full force. Marcus didn't deny it. I wanted you both to be comfortable when you came home. Home. The word hung between us, weighted with implications I wasn't ready to face. The young woman, Elena, appeared in the doorway, her manner deferential. Is there anything you need, Signora? Before I could correct her use of the formal title, Marcus spoke. Draw a bath for Eliza. She needs to rest afterward. Elena nodded and disappeared into the bathroom. The sound of running water followed moments later. I'm not your wife, I said once we were alone again. You shouldn't let them call me Signora. Marcus's expression remained impassive. Not yet, but soon. You can't just decide that. I already have. His tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel, but leaving no room for argument. The arrangements are being made, a private ceremony, as I mentioned. Nothing elaborate, given the circumstances. The circumstances being that I'm essentially your prisoner, I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Something flashed in his eyes. Anger, perhaps, or frustration. Is that what you think this is? Imprisonment? What would you call it? You tracked me down, erased my identity, and brought me here against my will. I brought you to safety, to security. He gestured around the opulent room. To a life where you'll never want for anything again. Where our daughter will have every opportunity. Except the opportunity to choose, I countered, just like her mother. Marcus stepped closer, and I instinctively backed away until the edge of the bed pressed against my legs. He stopped, watching my reaction with those penetrating dark eyes. You made your choice 7 months ago when you ran, he said, his voice low and controlled. You chose fear over trust, struggle over security. His jaw tightened. You chose to steal my child from me. I was protecting her. From what? From me? A hint of real pain laced his words. What kind of monster do you think I am, that I would harm my own blood? I thought of the man I'd seen executed in the restaurant parking lot, of the casual way Marcus had straightened his tie afterward. Not her, but the world you live in, the things you do, the things I do ensure that my family is safe, provided for, protected. He closed the distance between us, not touching me but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. That is all I have ever wanted, Eliza. To protect what's mine. The possessiveness in those words sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could respond, Sophia began to stir in my arms, her tiny face scrunching up as she prepared to cry. Marcus immediately stepped back, giving me space. I'll leave you to rest. Elena will help with anything you need. He moved toward the door, then paused. Dinner is at 7, but I'll have something sent up if you're not feeling well enough to join us. With that, he was gone, leaving me alone in my gilded cage with our daughter. The next 3 days passed in a haze of exhaustion and adjustment. True to his word, Marcus didn't pressure me to join the family for meals, instead having trays brought to my suite at regular intervals, always with fresh flowers and little notes inquiring about my comfort and Sophia's well-being. Elena was assigned as my personal assistant, helping with the baby when I needed to shower, or simply needed a moment to myself. She was kind but distant, clearly aware of the complex dynamics at play. I spent most of my time in the suite, venturing out only to walk the length of the hallway when the walls began to feel too close. Security men were always present, stationed at regular intervals throughout the house and grounds. They nodded respectfully when I passed, but made no move to stop me. I wasn't explicitly forbidden from exploring the estate, yet the constant surveillance made it clear that any attempt to leave would be immediately noticed and prevented. On the 4th morning, as I sat in the nursing chair by the window feeding Sophia, there was a soft knock at the door. I expected Elena with breakfast, but instead, Lucia Vitale entered, carrying a small package wrapped in silver paper. Buongiorno, she greeted me with a warm smile. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, I replied automatically, years of customer service training kicking in despite the surreal circumstances. Lucia settled gracefully onto the sofa across from me. In daylight, I could see the resemblance to Marcus more clearly. The same intense dark eyes, the same proud bearing, but where his features were sharp and sometimes cold, hers held a softness, particularly when she looked at Sophia. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her accent lilting pleasantly around the words. The recovery from a cesarean is not easy. I had one with Marcus. The personal detail surprised me. It's getting better, still sore. She nodded knowingly. I couldn't stand straight for 2 weeks. These young doctors who say you can be up and about in days. She made a dismissive gesture. They have never felt the knife themselves. There was something disarmingly genuine about her that made it difficult to maintain my guard. This was not the cold, calculating Mafia wife I had imagined. "I brought something for the little one," Lucia said, holding out the package. A tradition in our family. I hesitated before taking it, shifting Sophia slightly in my arms. Thank you, but I don't think... It is not from Marcus, she clarified, as if sensing my reluctance. It is from me, her nonna. Something in her expression, a flicker of vulnerability perhaps, made me relent. I took the package and awkwardly unwrapped it one-handed. Inside was a small silver bracelet, delicate but substantial, with tiny protective charms dangling from the links. It is to keep her safe, Lucia explained. Each Vitale child receives one at birth. The charms are blessed. She leaned forward slightly. My husband gave me mine when Marcus was born. I am passing the tradition to you. I ran my finger over the intricate metalwork, touched despite myself by the gesture. It's beautiful. Thank you. Lucia smiled, clearly pleased by my acceptance of the gift. May I hold her? When she has finished eating? I nodded, unable to think of a reason to refuse that wouldn't seem needlessly cruel. We sat in surprisingly comfortable silence as Sophia finished nursing. When she was done, I carefully burped her, and then, with only slight hesitation, placed her in Lucia's outstretched arms. The older woman cradled Sophia with practiced ease, murmuring softly to her in Italian. The tenderness on her face made my throat tighten unexpectedly. Marcus says you have no family left, Lucia said after a moment, looking up at me. No parents, no siblings. That's right, I confirmed, wondering where this was leading. It is hard being alone in the world, I know this. Her gaze returned to Sophia. When I came to this country as a young bride, I left everything behind. My family, my friends, my language. It was isolating. I hadn't expected this glimpse into her past, this hint of shared experience. Did you choose to come here? A small, sad smile touched her lips. It was arranged. My marriage to Antonio. I was 19. He was 32. I had met him only twice before the wedding. She adjusted Sophia's blanket with tender precision. I did not love him then. That came later, with time and understanding. I didn't know how to respond to this unexpected confidence. I'm sorry, I said finally. That must have been difficult. Life is often difficult, she replied with a philosophical shrug. But we find our way through. We adapt. We build new families, new connections. Her dark eyes, so like her son's, met mine. You are not alone anymore, Eliza. You have Sophia. And you have us. There was such sincerity in her words that I felt momentarily disarmed. Mrs. Vitale. Lucia, please. Lucia, I amended. I appreciate your kindness, truly, but you must understand that this situation is complicated. Because my son brought you here against your will? Her directness startled me. Yes, I know this. Marcus has his father's stubbornness, his determination to control everything in his domain. She sighed. But he also has his father's capacity for love. Fierce, absolute, sometimes frightening in its intensity. That's not love, I protested quietly. It's possession. For men like my son, for men like his father, they are often the same thing. Lucia's expression turned contemplative as she gazed down at Sophia. My husband would have done exactly as Marcus has done if I had tried to take his child from him. It is in their blood. This need to protect what they consider theirs. That doesn't make it right. No, she agreed, surprising me again. But it makes it understandable. She looked up at me, her gaze direct and unflinching. He was broken when you left, Eliza. I have never seen my son so lost. I struggled to reconcile this image with the controlled, powerful man who had tracked me down and brought me back like a reclaimed piece of property. He seemed perfectly functional to me, organized enough to monitor me for months, to plan this whole extraction, because he had purpose again, finding you, bringing you home. Lucia carefully stood and returned Sophia to my arms. You see only the surface, the strength. I saw what lay beneath, the fear. Marcus doesn't know fear, I scoffed. Everyone knows fear, Kara. For a man like my son, there is no greater fear than losing what he loves. She smoothed her dress and moved toward the door. Think about what I have said, and when you are feeling stronger, join us for dinner. This is your home now, and isolation will only make the adjustment more difficult. She left as quietly as she had arrived, leaving me with a sleeping baby, a silver bracelet, and thoughts more tangled than before. That evening, for reasons I couldn't fully articulate even to myself, I decided to accept the dinner invitation. Elena helped me dress in clothes I found in the massive walk-in closet adjoining my room. All new, all in my size, all with designer labels I'd only ever seen in magazines. I chose the most modest option, a simple navy dress that accommodated my still tender midsection and left my hair loose around my shoulders. With Sophia fed and sleeping soundly in her bassinet, I made my way downstairs, each step still painful but manageable. I found Marcus and Lucia in a dining room that could have comfortably seated 20, though only 3 places were set at one end of the long table. Candles flickered in silver holders, and fresh flowers spilled from a centerpiece that probably cost more than a month's rent at my old apartment. Marcus rose immediately when I entered, his eyes taking in every detail of my appearance. For a moment he looked almost stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to actually come down. "Eliza," he said, my name carrying a weight of emotion I wasn't prepared for. "You look beautiful." The simple compliment shouldn't have affected me, but something in his tone, a rawness I'd rarely heard from him, made heat rise to my cheeks. I pushed the feeling aside, reminding myself of the circumstances that had brought me here. "Thank you for joining us," Lucia said, gesturing to the chair opposite Marcus. A staff member I hadn't seen before appeared silently to pull it out for me. I sat carefully, still mindful of my healing incision. "Sophia is asleep. I thought I should acclimate myself to the house." "A wise decision," Lucia nodded approvingly. "Elena has the baby monitor?" "Yes, she's watching over her," I confirmed, surprised by the small stab of anxiety I felt at being separated from my daughter, even by just a floor. Marcus seemed to sense my unease. "There's a security detail outside your suite at all times. No one unauthorized can enter." The reminder of the constant surveillance that surrounded us wasn't as comforting as he clearly intended it to be. "I'm not worried about intruders, Marcus. We're in the middle of a fortress." A hint of amusement crossed his face. "Fair point." Dinner proceeded with surprising normalcy, almost like a civilized family meal rather than a hostage situation. The food was exquisite, a delicate pasta primavera followed by a perfectly cooked branzino, and the conversation remained carefully neutral. Lucia asked about my recovery. Marcus inquired about Sophia's sleeping patterns, and I found myself responding automatically, the social niceties ingrained from years of customer service taking over. It was during dessert, a lemon sorbet so perfectly tart and sweet it momentarily made me forget my circumstances, that Marcus finally broached a more substantive topic. "I've arranged for Dr. Russo to come tomorrow to check on you and Sophia," he said, setting down his spoon. "He's the family's personal physician, completely trustworthy." I tensed. "I don't need a doctor. The hospital said to follow up in a week." "It's been 5 days," Marcus pointed out reasonably, "and your discharge was accelerated. I'd prefer to have you examined properly." "You mean by someone on your payroll?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly, but his tone remained even. "By someone with 30 years of experience and the discretion required by our unique situation. Our unique situation being that I'm essentially being held against my will with a newborn?" Lucia cleared her throat delicately. "Perhaps I should check on the kitchen staff about coffee." "No need, Mother," Marcus said without taking his eyes off me. "I believe Eliza and I are overdue for a private conversation," Lucia nodded, rising gracefully from her chair. "I'll see you both in the morning, then." She paused beside my chair, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Try to rest, Kara. Things often look clearer after a good night's sleep." After she left, silence settled between us, heavy with unspoken tension. The staff had disappeared as well, leaving us truly alone for the first time since the hospital. "You're angry," Marcus finally said. It wasn't a question. "Perceptive of you," I replied, unable to keep the sarcasm from my voice. Instead of the flash of irritation I expected, a faint smile touched his lips. "That sharp tongue. It's one of the things I've missed most about you." The unexpected admission caught me off guard. "Don't do that," I said quietly. Do what? Act like this is some kind of romantic reunion, like we're picking up where we left off. I pushed my dessert plate away, suddenly nauseated. You tracked me down, Marcus. You threatened to take my child if I didn't come with you. You erased my identity. I protected you, he countered, leaning forward slightly. Both of you. From the moment I discovered you were pregnant. Protected us? I echoed incredulously. From what? From whom? He corrected. The Donati family, the Russos, my own cousins, who would have seen Sophia as leverage against me. His voice hardened. Do you have any idea what would have happened if they had found you first? What they would have done to extract information about me, about our operations? A chill ran through me. I never would have told them anything. I didn't know anything. They wouldn't have believed that. Marcus's eyes had darkened to near black, his face taut with suppressed emotion. They would have hurt you, Eliza. They would have used Sophia to control me. They would have... He cut himself off, his hand tightening around his water glass until I feared it might shatter. For the first time, I glimpsed genuine fear beneath his controlled exterior. Is that why you kept your distance? I asked slowly, pieces falling into place. Why you watched from afar instead of approaching me sooner? Marcus released the glass and leaned back, his expression carefully neutral once more. I needed to be certain no one had followed me to you, that no one was watching you, that bringing you home wouldn't put a target on your back. So you let me struggle, working 2 jobs while pregnant, living in that pathetic apartment, as you called it? The hurt and anger I'd suppressed for days surged forward. You could have helped me. I did help you. His voice was quiet but intense. Who do you think arranged for your landlord to conveniently forget about your late rent 3 months in a row? Who made sure your boss at the diner gave you the better shifts with higher tips? Who took care of the medical bills that mysteriously disappeared from the hospital's system? I stared at him, speechless as realization dawned. The inexplicable good fortune that had kept me afloat during my pregnancy, I had attributed it to luck, to kindness, to the universe finally cutting me a break. Never once had I suspected. That was you? I whispered. Every step of the way. There was no smugness in his admission, only a simple statement of fact. I couldn't approach you directly without risking exposure, but I could make sure you were taken care of. Why didn't you just... I don't know. Leave money in my account or something more direct? Because you would have run again, he replied without hesitation. You would have recognized my involvement and disappeared. And the next time, you might have gone somewhere truly dangerous, somewhere beyond even my resources to monitor and protect. He wasn't wrong. I would have fled at the first sign of his influence in my life. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? At the hospital? Would it have made a difference? He asked, his gaze searching my face. Would you have come willingly if I had explained? I wanted to say yes, but the truth caught in my throat. I don't know. Marcus nodded, as if my honesty confirmed something for him. I don't expect you to understand everything now, Eliza, or to forgive me immediately for the methods I've used. But in time, I hope you'll see that everything I've done has been to keep you and Sophia safe. Safe, but not free, I countered softly. Something like pain flickered across his face. Would you rather be free but in danger? Is that the choice you would make for our daughter? He'd struck at my most vulnerable point, my fierce primal need to protect Sophia at all costs. That's not fair. Very little about our situation is fair, he agreed, his voice gentling. But it is what it is. We have a child together, a daughter who deserves to know both her parents, to grow up in stability and security. In a house full of armed guards, you mean? I couldn't help the bitterness that crept into my tone. Those guards are there to protect our family, not to keep you prisoner. Marcus stood, coming around the table to stand beside my chair. You're not a captive here, Eliza. I looked up at him skeptically. So I can leave whenever I want? A muscle ticked in his jaw. It's not that simple. It is that simple. Either I'm free to go, or I'm a prisoner. And what about Sophia? He asked quietly. Would you take her with you? Back to that life of struggle and uncertainty? Or would you leave her here, with her father? With the protection and opportunities I can provide? The impossible choice hung between us. I could never leave without my daughter. But could I truly return to scraping by on minimum wage, constantly looking over my shoulder, depriving Sophia of the security and advantages Marcus could offer her? That's emotional blackmail, I said finally. It's reality. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. The simple touch sent an unwanted shiver down my spine. I'm not asking you to love me again, Eliza. Not yet. I'm only asking you to stay, to give this situation a chance, for Sophia's sake. Before I could respond, the baby monitor clipped to my dress crackled with the sound of Sophia's hungry cries. I stood immediately, wincing at the pull of stitches. I need to go to her, I said, grateful for the interruption. Marcus nodded, stepping back to give me space. Of course. We can continue this conversation tomorrow. There's nothing more to say tonight, I replied, moving past him toward the door. His hand caught mine, not forcefully, but with enough pressure to stop me. Eliza. His voice was low, almost vulnerable. I never stopped looking for you, not for a single day. I pulled my hand free, unsure how to respond to the raw emotion in his words. Good night, Marcus. I fled upstairs, my heart pounding with confusion. Sophia's cries grew louder as I approached my suite, grounding me in the immediate reality of motherhood. Elena had already picked her up and was gently bouncing her, relief evident on her face when I appeared. She just started crying, she explained, carefully transferring my daughter to my arms. I changed her, but I think she's hungry. Thank you, Elena, I said, settling into the nursing chair. You can go now. I've got her. The young woman nodded and slipped out quietly. As Sophia latched on and began to nurse, I gazed down at her perfect face, so trusting and innocent. Marcus's words echoed in my mind. Would you rather be free, but in danger? For the first time since being brought to this golden prison, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that Marcus's motives were more complex than simple possession or control. The thought was unsettling, blurring the clear lines I had drawn between victim and captor, right and wrong. The days stretched into weeks, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, a routine began to take shape. Mornings were spent with Sophia. Afternoons often included a walk through the estate's gardens under the watchful eyes of security, and evenings found me joining Lucia and Marcus for dinner more often than not. The conversations remained careful, focused largely on Sophia's development and my continuing recovery, but occasionally ventured into neutral territories like books, or music, or current events. Doctor. Russo came weekly to check on both Sophia and me, his manner professional and his care surprisingly thorough. I hated to admit it, but Marcus had been right about needing proper medical follow-up. The doctor discovered a minor infection in my incision that might have become serious if left untreated. I began to notice other things too. The way the security detail was positioned to watch outward, not inward. The fact that doors weren't locked behind me, how Marcus never entered my suite without knocking, always respecting the boundaries of what he called your space. Small things that made it increasingly difficult to maintain the narrative that I was simply a captive. 1 month after our arrival at the estate, I was feeding Sophia in the garden when Marcus found me. He approached slowly, as if giving me time to prepare for his presence. May I join you? He asked, gesturing to the space beside me on the stone bench. I nodded, shifting Sophia slightly in my arms. She had finished nursing and was now contentedly staring up at the pattern of leaves above us, sunlight dappling her perfect face. Marcus sat, keeping a respectful distance between us. For several minutes we simply watched our daughter in silence. She's thriving, he said finally, pride evident in his voice. Dr. Russo says she's gaining weight perfectly. She's a good eater, I agreed, unable to suppress a small smile, definitely not taking after me in that regard. Marcus chuckled, the sound surprisingly warm. You were always picking at your food when we went out. I used to worry you didn't like the restaurants I chose. The restaurants were fine, I admitted. I was just always nervous about spilling something on myself in front of you. You were so... I searched for the right word. Immaculate. Intimidating, you mean? He corrected, a hint of regret in his tone. That too, I acknowledged. Another comfortable silence fell between us, broken only by Sophia's occasional coos. I have something for you, Marcus said eventually, reaching into his jacket pocket. He withdrew a small velvet box, and my heart immediately clenched. Marcus, It's not what you think, he interrupted gently, opening the box to reveal not a ring, but a key. This is yours, if you want it. I stared at it in confusion. What does it open? The East Wing gate, the one that leads to the private beach. He carefully lifted the key from its velvet nest and held it out to me. No security follows you there. It's your space, if you want it. Somewhere you can go to be alone with your thoughts. I hesitated before taking it, the metal cool against my palm. Why are you giving me this now? Marcus's gaze was steady, unguarded in a way I'd rarely seen before. Because I want you to know that I meant what I said. You're not a prisoner here, Eliza. You're family. The sincerity in his words made my throat tighten unexpectedly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just consider it a gesture of trust and an invitation to find moments of solitude when you need them. He stood to leave, but I found myself speaking before I could think better of it. Marcus? He paused, looking back at me with those intense dark eyes. Thank you, I said simply. A smile touched his lips, not the controlled, calculated smile I'd seen him use in business contexts, but something softer, more genuine. You're welcome, Eliza. As he walked away, I closed my fingers around the key, feeling its weight and significance. It wasn't freedom in the traditional sense. I still couldn't leave the estate, still lived under the watchful eyes of security, still depended entirely on Marcus's mercy. But it was something. A small acknowledgement of my need for space, for autonomy, for trust. That night, after Sophia was settled in her bassinet, I ventured out onto the balcony adjoining my suite. The air was cool off the lake, carrying the scent of water and late summer flowers. In the distance, Chicago's skyline glittered like fallen stars. A world away from the isolated estate where I now lived, I thought about my old life, the constant struggle, the fear, the loneliness. Then I looked back through the glass doors at my sleeping daughter, safe and content in her lavish nursery. Whatever else might be true of my current situation, she was protected here, cherished. Part of a family that would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. The question that had haunted me since the hospital suddenly crystallized with painful clarity. What would freedom cost, and was I willing to pay that price? The next morning, I woke to find a large envelope on the table in my sitting area. Inside was a stack of official-looking documents, birth certificates, social security cards, passports. All with the name Sofia Vitale, listing Marcus and me as her parents. More disturbing were the documents for me. A new driver's license, social security card, and passport, all identifying me as Eliza Vitale. My hands trembled as I spread them across the table. The paperwork was flawless, indistinguishable from genuine government-issued documents. A note in Marcus's handwriting accompanied them. For your records, the ceremony is scheduled for Saturday. Small, as promised, only family. 4 days away. After a month of careful coexistence, of gradual adjustments to my new reality, Marcus was moving forward with his plan to make me his wife. I should have been angry, should have felt the same panic and resentment that had consumed me at the hospital. Instead, I felt a strange hollowness, as if watching events unfold from a distance. I was still staring at the documents when Lucia knocked and entered, carrying a garment bag. Ah, she said, noticing the papers. He told you then. Not exactly, I replied, gathering the documents and returning them to the envelope. He left these. Lucia sighed, hanging the bag on the closet door. My son has many strengths, but communication with women is not among them. She gestured to the bag. I brought this for you to try. If you don't like it, there are alternatives. The wedding dress, I assume? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Yes. She sat beside me, her expression gentle but direct. Eliza, may I speak frankly with you? I nodded, curious despite myself. You have been here a month now. You've seen how we live, how Marcus treats you. How we all adore Sophia. She folded her hands in her lap. I understand that the circumstances that brought you here were unconventional. But the life being offered to you now is real. The family waiting to embrace you is real. A family built on fear and control, I said quietly. Lucia didn't flinch at the accusation. Yes, there is fear. There is control. There is also protection, loyalty, and love so fierce it can sometimes look like possession. Her dark eyes, so like her son's, held mine steadily. I told you before that I did not love Antonio when I married him. That was the truth. But I grew to love him, to understand him, to see the man beneath the hard exterior that the world knew. That's different, I protested. You came here willingly. A small, sad smile touched her lips. Did I? My father was in debt to Antonio's family. The marriage was his way of clearing that debt. I had no more choice in the matter than you feel you have now. The revelation stunned me into silence. I was terrified, she continued, her voice softening with memory. 19 years old, sent to a foreign country to marry a man I barely knew, a man with a reputation for ruthlessness. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. The first year, I cried myself to sleep most nights. I planned escapes, imagined running away, even contemplated more permanent solutions to my situation. What changed? I asked, genuinely curious now. Time, understanding, and eventually, a choice. She reached out, covering my hand with hers. One day, Antonio came home badly wounded. A rival had attempted to eliminate him. I could have let him die, could have walked away while he was vulnerable and unable to stop me. Her eyes took on a faraway look. Instead, I chose to save him. I chose the life we had built, with all its complications and dangers, because I had come to see the truth of who he was beneath the exterior he showed the world. And what truth was that? That he would die to protect what he loved. That his honor, his loyalty to family, his commitment to his word were absolute. That the world he had built, while sometimes violent and frightening, was the only world where I and our children could be truly safe. She squeezed my hand gently. Marcus is his father's son, Eliza. He appears cold, controlled, even frightening to those who don't know him. But I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, not even Sophia. Her words stirred something uncomfortable in me, something I had been trying to ignore since that night in the garden. I don't know if I can do this, Lucia. You don't have to know yet, she replied simply. Just try the dress. One step at a time. After she left, I approached the garment bag with trepidation. Inside was not the elaborate princess gown I had feared, but a simple sheath of ivory silk, elegant and understated, tasteful. Beautiful, even. I hung it back without trying it on, unwilling to take even that symbolic step toward acceptance. That afternoon, I used the key Marcus had given me for the first time, making my way through the east wing gate to the private stretch of beach beyond. Elena stayed with Sophia, who was napping peacefully after her feeding. The late summer sun warmed the sand as I walked along the shore, the vast expanse of Lake Michigan stretching before me like an inland sea. No security followed me, true to Marcus's word. For the first time in a month I was alone, truly alone. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. I could run now, follow the shoreline to a public beach, find help, disappear again. But to what end? To return to the life of struggle and fear I'd lived during my pregnancy? To deprive Sophia of the security and advantages that came with her father's name? To spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, knowing that Marcus would never stop searching for us? More importantly, did I even want to run anymore? The question stopped me in my tracks. When had my feelings begun to shift? When had this gilded cage started to feel less like a prison and more like home? I thought of Lucia's words, that she had chosen to stay, chosen the complicated, sometimes frightening life with Antonio because she had come to see the truth of who he was. Was there a truth about Marcus I wasn't seeing? Or was I simply succumbing to a captive syndrome, mistaking the absence of cruelty for kindness? Lost in these thoughts, I didn't hear the footsteps behind me until Marcus spoke. You found it, he said, stopping a respectful distance away. He wore casual clothes for once, Dark jeans and a simple button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing powerful forearms. He looked younger somehow, more approachable. "It's beautiful," I admitted, gesturing to the private beach with its pristine sand and gentle waves. "Secluded. It was my favorite place as a child," he said, surprising me with the personal revelation. "I would come here to escape my father's expectations, my mother's worried gaze." I studied him, trying to imagine Marcus as a boy, burdened by family legacy even then. "Did you need to escape often?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "More than they knew. Less than I wanted." He looked out over the water. "May I walk with you? Or would you prefer your solitude?" The fact that he asked, that he recognized my need for space, and respected it enough to offer to leave, tilted another piece of my perception. "You can walk with me," I said finally. We strolled in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the gentle lapping of waves and the occasional cry of a gull overhead. "I saw the documents," I said at last, unable to ignore the elephant between us any longer. "And Lucia brought the dress." Marcus nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "The ceremony will be small, just my mother, a few trusted family members, and Father Dominic, who has been our family's priest since before I was born." He glanced at me. "He can be trusted with discretion, and if I say no?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the waves. Marcus stopped walking, turning to face me fully. "Is that what you want to say, Eliza?" I met his gaze, searching those dark eyes for signs of the cruel captor I had cast him as in my mind. Instead, I saw only intensity, determination, and something deeper. Vulnerability, perhaps, fear of my answer. "I don't know what I want anymore," I admitted honestly. "A month ago, I would have said yes, that's exactly what I want to say. But now?" "Now?" he prompted, a note of hope in his voice that I had never heard before. "Now I'm confused," I whispered. "About all of this. About you." Marcus took a careful step closer. "What confuses you about me? Everything. The man who tracked me down and threatened to take my baby if I didn't comply. The man who watches his daughter sleep with such tenderness, it makes my heart ache. The crime boss who orders executions without blinking. The protective father who installed the safest car seat available." I shook my head. "Which one is the real Marcus Vitale?" "All of them," he replied without hesitation. "I've never pretended to be a simple man, Eliza. The world I inhabit doesn't allow for simplicity. Or normal relationships," I added quietly. "No," he agreed, surprising me. "Not normal. But perhaps something deeper, something more honest than what passes for normal in the outside world." He took another step toward me, close enough now that I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. "I don't pretend with you, Eliza. I never have. The man you're seeing now is the same man you've always known. Protective, possessive, willing to do whatever is necessary to secure what matters to me." "And what matters to you?" I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it. "You," he said simply. "Sophia. Our family." His hand reached out, not quite touching me, but hovering in the space between us. I went about this all wrong. I know that now. Fear made me ruthless, made me forget that your will, your choice matters to me. "Does it?" I challenged, because the wedding invitation seemed to have gone out regardless of my feelings on the matter. A flicker of something like shame crossed his face. "Old habits," he admitted. "Control is..." He seemed to search for the right words. "A reflex. A survival mechanism. Not a healthy foundation for a marriage," I pointed out. "No," he agreed again, surprising me with his candor. "It isn't. Which is why I'm asking you now, properly asking you, what you want." I stared at him, momentarily speechless. "Are you serious?" "Completely." His expression was more open than I had ever seen it, stripped of the careful control he usually maintained. "If you say no to Saturday, I'll cancel everything. If you want more time, you'll have it. If you want a different arrangement entirely." He let the words hang between us, and I realized with sudden clarity that he was genuinely offering me a choice. Perhaps the first real choice I'd had since he appeared in my hospital room. "Why now?" I asked. suspicious of this sudden capitulation. "What's changed?" Marcus looked away, his gaze moving to the distant horizon. "I've been watching you this past month, with Sophia, with my mother, even with the staff." He took a deep breath. "You're adapting, finding your place, building connections. But there's still a wall between us, a distance I put there with my actions at the hospital." He turned back to me, and the naked emotion in his eyes took my breath away. "I want to tear down that wall, Eliza. I want a real marriage, not just a legal arrangement to secure my claim to Sophia. I want what we had before, but stronger, deeper, built on truth rather than half-truths and omissions." "We can't go back," I said softly. "Too much has happened." "I'm not asking to go back." His voice dropped lower, intense with feeling. "I'm asking to move forward, together, as equals, insofar as that's possible in my world." I searched his face, looking for signs of manipulation or deception, but found only sincerity. "I need to think," I said finally. "This is a lot to process." Marcus nodded, stepping back to give me space. "Take all the time you need." He turned to leave, then paused. "Just one thing, Eliza, yes? Whatever you decide about Saturday, about us, know this. You and Sophia are my family now. That won't change. You'll always have a home here, always be protected, always be provided for, no strings attached." The simple declaration, delivered without drama or emotional manipulation, affected me more deeply than any passionate plea might have. Because I believed him. Despite everything, I believed that this, at least, was absolute truth. I watched him walk away, his figure silhouetted against the afternoon sun. When he disappeared through the gate, I sank onto the sand, overwhelmed by the conflicting emotions surging through me. For the first time since that night in the hospital, I allowed myself to remember the good times with Marcus, the way he'd listened when I spoke, really listened, as if my thoughts mattered, the gentle way he'd touched me when we were alone, so at odds with his public persona, the passion that had ignited between us from that very first kiss. I thought about Sophia, about the future I wanted for her. Security, yes, but also love. A family. Parents who respected each other. Who chose each other. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the lake in shades of gold and crimson, I realized that somewhere along the way, my feelings had become hopelessly tangled. The line between captor and protector, between fear and security, between past and future had blurred beyond recognition. I stood, brushing sand from my clothes, and made my decision. Saturday dawned clear and perfect, the late summer air carrying the first hints of autumn crispness. From my window, I could see the small group gathering in the estate's private chapel. Lucia, elegant in navy blue, a priest in traditional vestments, a few faces I recognized from family dinners over the past month, and Marcus, standing straight and tall in a perfectly tailored black suit. I turned from the window to the ivory dress hanging on the closet door. Beside it, Sophia lay awake in her bassinet, cooing softly at the mobile above her. My daughter. Our daughter. The reason for everything that had brought me to this moment. "What do you think, little one?" I asked her, running a gentle finger along her perfect cheek. "Should Mommy marry Daddy today?" Sophia blinked up at me with those dark eyes so like her father's. And in that innocent gaze, I found my answer. An hour later, I stood outside the chapel doors, the simple silk dress flowing around me, my hair adorned with tiny white flowers. No veil, no train, no elaborate jewelry. Just me, as I had always been. But choosing differently this time, choosing with open eyes and full knowledge of what, and whom, I was accepting. The doors opened, and I saw Marcus turn, saw the momentary shock on his face melt into something like awe. Beside him, Lucia held Sophia, tears glistening in her eyes. As I walked toward them, toward the complicated, dangerous, fiercely protective family that was now mine, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. Not the resignation of a captive, but the quiet certainty of a woman who had weighed all options and chosen the path that felt right, for herself and for her child. Marcus's eyes never left mine as I approached, his expression more open and vulnerable than I had ever seen it. You came, he said softly. Just for me. I chose. I corrected him, taking his offered hand. There's a difference. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a respect I hadn't seen there before. Yes, he agreed, his fingers tightening around mine. There is. The ceremony was brief, the words traditional, yet weighted with new meaning. When Father Dominic pronounced us husband and wife, Marcus leaned in to kiss me with surprising gentleness, his lips barely brushing mine, not claiming, but asking. I answered by deepening the kiss, my free hand coming up to rest against his chest, feeling the steady, powerful beat of his heart. When we parted, I turned to take Sophia from Lucia, cradling my daughter between us. Marcus's arm encircled us both, his expression fiercely tender as he gazed down at our small family. Mine to protect, he murmured. Always. Ours, I corrected softly. Ours to protect. Together. Something shifted in his eyes then. A subtle but profound change, an acceptance of the partnership I was offering. Equal in purpose, if not in power. United in our love for Sophia, and perhaps in time, for each other once more. Later that night, after a small celebration dinner and the quiet departure of the few guests, I stood on the balcony of my suite, our suite now, as Marcus had moved his things in while we dined. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance, no longer representing a lost freedom, but rather a world kept safely at bay. Marcus joined me, offering a glass of champagne. Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Vitale. The name still felt strange, but not as foreign as I had expected. I was just thinking about choices, I said, accepting the glass. About how sometimes the right choice isn't the easy one. He studied me in the moonlight, his expression thoughtful. Do you regret it? Saying yes? I considered the question carefully, wanting to give him truth rather than comfort. No, I said finally. I don't regret choosing this life, choosing to build something with you for Sophia's sake. I met his gaze directly. But I won't be a silent partner in this marriage, Marcus. I won't be a decorative wife who looks the other way when difficult decisions are made. Instead of the resistance I half expected, Marcus smiled. A real smile that transformed his usually guarded features. I would be disappointed if you were. Your spirit, your fire. They're why I fell in love with you in the first place. And here, I thought it was because I dropped that tray of drinks, I replied, allowing a small smile of my own. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. That too. His expression sobered. I meant what I said today, Eliza. You and Sophia are mine to protect, but I'm also yours. Whatever you need, whatever you want, it's yours. You only have to ask. I reached up, touching his face gently. I want honesty, respect, partnership, as much as possible in your world. Our world now, he corrected, turning his face to press a kiss to my palm. And you have my word. No more secrets between us. As his lips found mine in a deeper, more passionate kiss, I felt the last of my reservations begin to melt away. This wasn't Stockholm Syndrome or a captive's delusion. This was a conscious choice to embrace a complicated man and the complex world he inhabited. A world that, for better or worse, was now mine as well. Later, with Sophia sleeping peacefully in her bassinet and Marcus's arm draped protectively around me in our bed, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. From a terrified pregnant woman fleeing in the night to the wife of one of Chicago's most powerful men. From hiding my baby to sharing her with a father who adored her. From prisoner to partner. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Life with Marcus would never be simple or entirely safe. There would be difficult moments ahead. Compromises and conflicts unique to the world we inhabited. But as I drifted toward sleep, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Certainty. I had thought I could hide my baby from the Mafia boss who fathered her. Instead, I had found my way back to him, not as a captive, but as a woman making a clear-eyed choice for herself and her child. Not a perfect choice, perhaps, but the right one for us. And in the end, that was enough.